How Hitler was defeated in World War II. In 1940, Europe looked grim. Germany, led by Adolf Hitler, had conquered most of the continent. Countries like Austria, Poland, Norway, Belgium, Denmark, and France were all under German control. In Italy, dictator Mussolini was allied with Hitler, making things even more difficult for the rest of Europe. At this point, only three major powers remained: Germany, the Soviet Union, and Britain. Despite the peace agreement between Germany and the Soviet Union, Britain stood alone in opposing Hitler. On the other side of the world, America wanted nothing to do with the war. However, Britain was determined not to give up, even though Germany's army was much stronger. Prime Minister Winston Churchill gave a famous speech declaring, "We shall never surrender." The Battle of Britain. Hitler thought that Britain would eventually sign a peace treaty, but Churchill had other plans. To force Britain into submission, Hitler launched Operation Sea Lion, an invasion of Britain. Since there was no land connection between Britain and Europe, Hitler's plan was to first gain control of the skies. Germany's Luftwaffe Air Force had over 2,600 planes, while Britain had only 700. On July 10, 1940, Germany began bombing British airfields and factories. The British Royal Air Force, RAF, though smaller, fought back bravely. The turning point came on August 24, 1940, when Germany mistakenly bombed London. Churchill retaliated by bombing Berlin, which made Hitler even more determined to destroy London. On September 15, 1940, Hitler sent over 1,000 aircraft to bomb London, but the RAF shot down more than 60 German planes, suffering only 29 losses. This was the Battle of Britain Day, a major defeat for Germany. The reason Britain fought so hard was simple: they had to survive. If they didn't, they'd be wiped out. This fierce determination gave them the edge, even though Germany's air force was stronger. Hitler's fatal mistake: invading the Soviet Union. In 1941, Hitler decided to invade the Soviet Union, even though they had a peace treaty. Hitler believed that defeating the Soviets would make Germany the world's strongest power. He launched Operation Barbarossa in June 1941, dividing his forces into three groups: one attacking Leningrad, one targeting Moscow, and one moving through Ukraine. But the Soviets fought back fiercely, and the German army, though more technologically advanced, was stretched thin. As winter approached, the cold weather gave the Soviets an advantage. The Germans were ill-prepared for the freezing temperatures, and their advance slowed down. Meanwhile, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor in December 1941, pulling the United States into the war. America joined the Allies, which included Britain, the Soviet Union, and China. Japan had already invaded several countries in the Pacific, and now the United States would join the fight to stop them. The tide turns in 1942. By mid-1942, the Soviets had started to push back German forces, especially in Stalingrad, where the Germans suffered heavy losses. The Battle of Stalingrad became a turning point in the war. Over 300,000 German soldiers were trapped and forced to surrender in February 1943. Meanwhile, in Italy, Mussolini was overthrown by his own people, and the new government stopped fighting the Allies. This gave the Allied forces more confidence that they could defeat Hitler. D-Day and the end of the war. On June 6, 1944, known as D-Day, over 150,000 Allied soldiers landed in Normandy, France. This was the first major assault on German-occupied Western Europe. Hitler, facing attacks from both the East by the Soviet Union and the West by the Allies, was in a difficult position. His forces were stretched thin, and the Allies were making significant progress. By early 1945, Germany was being attacked from all sides. Hitler launched his last offensive in the Battle of the Bulge, but it failed. The Allies continued their march towards Germany, and in February 1945, they began heavy bombings of German cities. The end of Hitler. In April 1945, Soviet forces surrounded Berlin, and Hitler realized defeat was inevitable. On April 30, 1945, he took his own life. Germany officially surrendered on May 8, 1945, marking the end of World War II in Europe. After the war, Germany was divided into East and West Germany, and many borders in Europe were redrawn. The European Union was later formed to prevent future conflicts between European nations, and the United Nations was established to ensure global peace.